got me muted. I thought that's the job of a producer. No, I'm just kidding. What's going on, everybody? Dude, I just went for like a minute there. Dave Loughran and Matt Savoca here. It's an Underdog fantasy draft, and we are 4 picks away. Matt, let me just say out of the gate, because I just botched all of that opening, so you just see my lips moving without anything coming out. We're over on Underdog Fantasy. We're happy to have you guys with us. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content. Matt, this is the first one you and I have done together. We got lucky. It started up right as I joined. And
nice.
We're drafting 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, we're drafting 12.
Okay, so we got 2 picks on the turn.
Yeah.
Not my favorite, but we might be double tapping a position here depending on what happens in the beginning.
I think it's very much possible that that's going to be the case. We come up in, let's see here. We are up in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks. And still running backs on the board. You've got, let me see here. You've got Aaron Jones still on the board. Can you see? Can you see on the?
Yeah, I'm seeing pretty well. We're making it work. This is my first screen share Underdog. Of course, used to having those rankings right next to me, but we're gonna roll.
I'm gonna zoom this in a little bit. See if it helps. Hopefully that's better for you guys and you, Chris. And then I'm just gonna have to hope that we don't get screwed up here, because it's hard to control this. Obviously, when you have no screen to work with, but we'll make it work. So, Matt, what are you looking at it? And I'll just throw this out there first. McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, Alvin Kamara, who I would take ahead of Henry, but that's just me. Devontae Adams, 5. At 6, you went Elliott, Diggs, Hill. Jones is gone. 2 picks till us. Barkley still on the board. Eckler still on the board. There goes Barkley. And then Ridley, Hopkins, and all of the good receivers that haven't gone yet.
Yeah, I think we could theoretically start Ridley Hopkins here. Not the craziest idea. I'm noticing that Travis Kelce is falling exactly into the range where you want to take him. Great pick there. But here we are at 112 without the ability to pick Kelce. So I think actually we got Eckler on the board. I think this might be a great time to take 2 wide receivers who have wide receiver 1 overall potential. Yes, it's going to be a while until we take running back, but I think Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins might be my pick here. I see you already went with Ridley, and
I'm following you. Listen, I've done a lot of drafts. I've done a lot of drafts already. I'm happy to take your input on this and see where you want to go. I mean, I like Eckler here and getting a stud of each, a wide receiver and an RB1, but I'm also okay going with 2 wide receivers. Let's see what happens if we go 2 wide receivers here.
I think it could be fun, especially after that strategy show talking all about the different strategies. We're not launched and locked into 0 RB just because we took wide receivers here, but I think it's really exciting here, and we definitely have the positional advantage compared to every other team at those wide receiver 1 and 2 spots, I believe.
For sure. I actually did a mock draft a week or so ago where I said, let me just see what happens if I wait on running backs. Let me just see. And I ended up with, this is before the D'Onta Foreman news coming to Atlanta. You could put as much weight into that as you want. I would have been happy for them to have nobody behind Mike Davis. But I got Carson and Davis as my 1 and 2 receivers. But I think I still had like Stephon Diggs and Calvin Ridley as my 1 and 2 wide receiver. Running back, and then Diggs and Ridley as my 1 and 2 receivers. So, and I think maybe I went Waller instead. I don't know. But the fact remains that it's fun to mess around with this stuff. This is only the $5 puppy too, right? So we're not putting a lot into this. So why not take some shots and see how it turns out? And I also know, Matt, there are a lot of people out there, big time best ball guys, that love this stuff as much as we do, that are going like straight up 0 RB all of the time. That's not something I particularly love. I don't try to do that, but at the turn, I don't think it's the worst decision if Barkley ends up going and Jones is gone and a lot of those top running backs are already off the board.
Well, I think a lot of those next tier players, maybe Austin Eckler excluded here because he is a receiving specialist and he theoretically could be the bell cow in Los Angeles. You're talking about players who are a little bit game script dependent, though I believe in the talent of Jonathan Taylor and Nick Chubb. There are definitely warts on the profile if you're trying to nitpick and say, why aren't they a first round pick? And so I believe that Ridley and Hopkins are in terms of upside, right there with the running backs. And I think they're more locked in to basically any type of game flow. They're going to get their targets no matter what. So I think actually there's a little bit of quote unquote safety built into those 2 picks. Also, we got to think about the fact that we are in the Puppy 2, which is going to have over 100,000 participants, meaning now we have 2 fantastic stacking opportunities because we're probably going to be stacking here at some point.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I am a lot of times very much willing to go with wide receivers on a team where there's a defined wide receiver 1, bona fide stud, and then a decent enough wide receiver 2, but maybe not the greatest quarterback. And I think that'll open things up once in a while where you don't have to spend a very high pick on a quarterback. It's not that I'm not willing to do it, especially when you're looking to stack. Like if you wanted to go Murray and Hopkins, understandable. But Matt Ryan always makes for an interesting one for me too, Matt, because Russell Gage is another one of those options you can get, in the 10th or 11th round, and then grab Matt Ryan even after that. You have Ridley, Russell Gage, and Matt Ryan, and you did it at a pretty conservative cost.
I agree. And you know what? I've been kind of down on him for most of the year, but in a tournament like this, where we need outlier performances from players who have superstar ability, this is a situation where I'll start to think about Kyle Pitts and really leaning in on the possibility that a Matt Ryan, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley stack might be something that not everyone in the field is banking on, and maybe we can ride that in some late season performances.
Absolutely. Hey, meanwhile, Joe Mixon just went in the last pick of the 2nd round. That seems wild. Allen Robinson, first pick of the 3rd. He is one of my favorite draft picks this year. I think 3rd round value for a guy that has been a top 10 receiver back-to-back years with quarterbacking that can't get any worse. 150 plus top 3 in targets back-to-back years. I think Allen Robinson is one of the safest yet highest upside plays in that round. And then Dobbins goes at 3-5. Let me see where we're at. So, Matt, we're 3 picks away. Let's just see if there's any decent running backs left. There are. I mean, Carson, Montgomery, Darrell Henderson. I'm a little bit nervous, and then there's word from McVay that Xavier Jones will carve himself out a role, as he said. Sanders, Etienne, that's a little bit too much. What do you think of the guys that are still on the board here at running back? Because I want to get one running back here if one of those guys I like is still available.
Yeah, I think that right now, what are we looking at? We're already at 10 picks, the 10th pick of the 2nd round, and it looks like there is some solid value at running back. I know last week on this channel that Alex Baker was talking up the safety and the consistency of Chris Carson in a high-quality Seattle offense. I still think we're discounting David Montgomery too much.
Big time.
Running back 1 over the last 6 weeks of the season, really high in expected points. And you notice that people are grabbing their first wide receiver and players like Robert Woods. And, we have a distinct advantage there. So all we need to do is lay down a floor here. I certainly think we could take some high upside wide receivers here as well. But I kind of agree with you. I think we take at least one running back here. It's a true toss up. I have David Montgomery 1 spot higher than Chris Carson. But yeah, right, and there he is.
Let me interrupt for a second, Matt. It is possible for us to start our team with Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Chris Carson, and David Montgomery. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think it's a balanced roster. I think that means we have no deficiencies, but we're probably not going to win the flex. I would vote one of the running backs. Carson.
I'm going to go with Montgomery because I have Carson in so many other leagues. Okay, so I went with Montgomery. Enough. Make the 2nd pick here. I'll light up wide receiver and tight end for you and tell me what you want to do.
Okay. I have on my rankings next up, right next to him, is Carson. So I'm absolutely fine here. Mike Evans is not the Buccaneer I'm usually targeting here. And then Tyler Lockett, Cooper Kupp. You're talking about another tier of wide receivers. I'm waiting. Carson.
Dude, hold on. Nope. We got Mike Evans.
We're not upset about that. Another stacking opportunity. We'll be all right. He's right there in the
This is the problem when my screen blows up like this. It's so hard to navigate because you can't scroll anywhere. It's cool. By the way, the chat was disabled earlier, and we just enabled it. I don't know why it was disabled. So I would have been happy with Carson. Next time, I just got to star him there, Matt. Make it a little easier so it'll auto-draft him in the event that we go down like that. But we have Ridley, we have Hopkins, we have Montgomery, and we have Evans right now. That's a pretty good start to a team.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, if you take the projections that we have and you round them to the nearest half point, we're really talking, we're quibbling about like a half a fantasy point a game difference here. So also incredible upside for Mike Evans. You know, there's a reason he's being drafted as the first wide receiver on a prolific offense. So everyone's trying to get the dip on Chris Godwin and especially Antonio Brown. I thought your video summed it up nicely this week, talking about the safety of Antonio Brown in the mid rounds, but not upset about Mike Evans at all.
That actually, yeah, me neither. That video actually dropped today right on this channel. Check it out if you want. It was must draft player from every round. And, you know, I talked about Antonio Brown in the 7th, Matt, but the truth is that Antonio Brown on Underdog has sharp ADP. And I think you want to get drafts in here because, first of all, if you use the promo code Awesemo, you get $25 free when you sign up and deposit. That's huge, especially with the $1 million and $1 to first place, $3.5 million best ball tournaments, the biggest ever. The puppy too here, it's $5 to enter. I think $100,000 to first place. Just so many different awesome tournaments, bigger ones, smaller ones, whatever. But it's sharp ADP, and I think that can work for you. It can be tougher sometimes, but also work for you because I think what happens is you get a lot of just like hive mind mentality where certain guys will just climb the ranks insanely high, and you can pass up on certain guys there. But with Antonio Brown, if you're going into other spots like home leagues and stuff, Matt, you might get this guy at 110.
Truly, he's one of those players who, in some leagues, though, I will say there's the counterintuitive where people are going to use the name brand and how good he was over the course of his career and overdraft him as well. So he could go either way. I was in leagues where Gronk went absurdly high last year, and I think that is a kind of a similar example with Antonio Brown. But we're talking about a player who was wide receiver 1 on one of the best offenses in the league. And by the time Super Bowl came around, arguably was the best offense. So I'm not opposed to taking him a little bit early or pivoting to a Godwin stack, or excuse me, a Tom Brady stack, even though we talked about a Falcon stack, targeting that NFC South early, along with David Montgomery as our running back, hero RB.
What do you want to do for running backs? If let's assume we don't go RB here, we're 9 picks away. Most of these guys, if I get Gaskin in the 6th, I think he's the cheapest 3-down back that's still available. I'm a little bit more nervous about Mike Davis right now. Josh Jacobs, I don't feel great about. Travis Etienne at 53 is another guy not huge on. Miles Sanders, I think I like him more than most people, even with the word that Sirianni is going to give Boston Scott a lot of work. I think once you get to the regular season, Sanders is just too talented. But running back's not great right now. Do we continue to hold off depending on what's there and maybe just look heavier later in the draft and load up on some speculative guys with league-winning upside?
I'm kind of leaning that way. And you know what? Let's check out the tight ends that are off the board at this point. Yeah, we've lost out on the chance at Kyle Pitts. That's okay. It's too early to take him, and people are taking their shots. I understand that. But, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. Myles Gaskin as the 6-1, I don't hate that personally.
Me neither.
I think that if he's available and we can lock down that RB2 spot, that allows us to take shots at different types of running backs. If we wait, we are going to be taking running backs like the A.J. Dillons of the world. So ones that are going to be guaranteed touches early, but we're going to need something to break right for them to really be a fantasy league winning producer. There goes Kyler Murray. So there goes our Cardinal stack. As you're going to see, these super sharp ADPs in the puppy tournament, people trying to block people from taking stacks, things you'll never see in your home league. Things can get very competitive here in very specific ways.
I agree totally. Now, I will say, if we go Gaskin, we're going at 6-1 and not the 5-12 because it just feels better. Oh, I got him in the 6th round. I'm joking, of course. But this is where it gets a little bit interesting. We have Mike Evans. We don't need to go even close to a Tom Brady yet. We can wait on Matt Ryan. So what do you want to do for the first spot here? And, of course, I can just go Gaskin and we can figure it out. But I'll let this timer go down a little bit.
Well, I think we're going Gaskin here. And I think maybe we want to load up on another wide receiver here and win the flex, if you will. So in terms of highest ranking here, yeah, I'm fine with any of those. There goes Gaskin for us. Perfect. And who we got at wide receiver left?
Hold on one second. We have Debo. I know Debo's still there. Kenny Galladay. I kind of like Sutton this year. Mike, I'm fine with any of these guys. You tell me who you like.
I got Galladay listed highest among those.
You aren't worried about that hammy?
I am, but as our wide receiver 4, that's cooking for me.
Fair enough. And another thing to consider too with Underdog, every week, right? You're optimizing your starting lineup based on the top scorers from each position. Matt, one thing that I don't mind if you're going heavy wide receiver early is you have to play 3 receivers every week. And a lot of weeks it's going to be 4. The most running backs you can play any week is 3.
That's right. And, you'd be surprised, especially if you don't, we haven't been paying much attention to bye weeks in the early rounds. And that's absolutely something I recommend. Don't worry so much. Maybe at the 1Z positions, don't double up. But you're going to notice at a certain point, you're going to be looking at your team being like, oh, wow, 3 of my wide receivers had the same bye week. I didn't even realize that. Yep. And suddenly those 4 wide receivers you picked early don't feel quite like enough. And so we're going to have plenty of wide receivers on this team when we end, especially because this is a tournament where we're looking to get league winning upside, not only get first in our 12-team league, but then compete almost like a DFS tournament in the last few weeks of the season.
I'm pretty happy with what we have. So we have no tight ends yet. And I'm too zoomed in to make, we'll have to figure out something else next time to make it so I can actually get over to see some of these results. But we've got at our running back spot, Montgomery and Gaskin. So if we're being fair, it's still 2 3-down backs, and we got one of them in the 6th round. Like I said, Gaskin to me is the last 3-down back you're going to find. And in the same video I posted today, Matt, I say in the 8 weeks that he started, Gaskin averaged almost 20 looks per game. So I'm okay with that. And then you've got Ridley and Hopkins, just a phenomenal start at wide receiver, Mike Evans and Kenny Galladay. This isn't to say I want to start reaching at tight end at all, but I am curious that if some of these guys are still on the board, we're 17 picks away, it might be worth entertaining it at least. I don't know where you're at on Higbee this year. I think you see better numbers from him. Hawkinson is not going to be there. Dallas Goedert is another one that Jalen Hurts targeted his tight ends at almost a 30% clip last year. So I don't think it's completely dead position quite yet in these rounds. What are you looking at once we get to the 7 and the 8?
I agree. And what's interesting is this is usually a place I'm not looking at tight end, but I've been doing some research and looking at the weekly results of these mid-tier tight ends, specifically using Underdog scoring. And there is a little bit of upside. And what I can say is they're just about the same as the wide receivers at this level. So I wouldn't be opposed to rounding out our team with Tyler Higbee. We're seeing that second tier of quarterback ones. That's a good spot for Mark Andrews at the 6'11". I think that's great value. But I guess Hawkinson's getting a little bit of that injury dip because I believe he didn't finish practice yesterday. And so I think that's what we're seeing. Oh, he doubled up there. Oh no, sorry, 6'11" and 6'12", back to back.
That would have been a real strange decision.
That would have been. I almost freaked out there. But no, that makes sense for both those players. The only one I'm considering right there is Higbee. I know some people are higher on Noah Fant. I think that Denver offense is just not going to be able to support Judy and Sutton and Fant. It's just, I'm worried about that position being super volatile. One player I'm wondering is still on the board. Is Michael Thomas around?
Yeah, this just feels a little early. You don't think so?
Right about now, we're going to be at the 7-11.
Hold on, let me first see before we even get into this if he's still here.
Gone.
Yeah, he's gone. Yeah. So, where was he drafted? He must have gone relatively early. Michael Thomas went at. Dude, did somebody just not pay attention? A lot of people, it's like, he went at 38. Wow.
No, thank you. You can have him at 38. You can.
That is crazy. But again, with these $5 ones, there's probably people out there that don't even know that he could miss, through late October at this point.
Yeah, it's possible, or somebody timed out and they auto picked Thomas.
Yeah, but his ADP has fallen a lot further than that recently. That's why I don't imagine it could have been that unless they starred him. Maybe I'm wrong. Hold on. His ADP is at 83 now on Underdog.
Which is that's fair. That's fair, especially with certain builds.
They took him at 38.
That is what I'm thinking happened is they had their rankings in and they just drafted off their rankings, which haven't been updated for a Thomas injury.
So Dallas Goedert and Higbee might still be on the board. We got to take one of them. If Higbee's there, I like him in this offense quite a bit this season. I'd be very happy to get Higbee here.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's star him and then take a good long look at what our second player could be.
Okay, so you want Higbee or Goddard?
I'm going to vote for Higbee here.
Okay, I'm with you because it seems like Ertz is actually getting some decent work.
I agree. They come up very similar in the projections, I will add. I really like Will Fuller or Curtis Samuel here as our second pick. Chase Edmonds, Damian Harris, Michael Carter. I feel like those are reaches. I think we're still in the quote-unquote dead zone here. So I think Will Fuller is one of those players who every quarterback, I mean, we obviously Deshaun Watson, their yards per attempt goes higher, their yards per target goes higher. The efficiency of the whole offense changes with a healthy Will Fuller. I think we can maybe back off the wide receiver position after this, but okay. I think that's a great pick there.
I'm fine with that. I don't have much Will Fuller in these drafts anyway, so I don't mind getting a little diversified here. He's suspended for only, I believe, week 1.
Correct.
And then you just have to hope that he ends up being a guy that Tua Tagovailoa really likes, and I think it's possible. I mean, Devontae Parker's solid, but he's not spectacular. Jalen Waddle, you don't know what you're going to get from him in year 1. So I'm all right with that. I really like Higbee, though, here because I think once – and we didn't need to go tight end, but like you said, it's kind of a dead zone in a lot of spots. So – oftentimes you see these guys are already gone, and maybe we reached a little bit on Higbee, but there's no way where we're at when we came back to us that we'd be getting any decent tight ends, I don't think, unless, we could wait a lot longer if we wanted to do that. And I think we can do that for our second tight end as well.
Yeah, we're obviously trying, because we don't have one of the big 3. We're really just trying to cobble together weeks where we can be at league average or right around there. And that usually means about 5 to 7 targets and hopefully a few end zone targets. I think we're going to see Tyler Higbee see a huge boost in opportunity, and that's not fully factored into his ADP. So I think I'm fine, quote unquote, reaching there. This is also a place where I start to love to look quarterback. I'm seeing that the top tier and the mid tier quarterback ones are off the board, but we see a precipitous drop after this final QB1 tier. I think you have to say that there's significantly more safety in seeing if we can get this Tom Brady stack going with Mike Evans.
I don't think we will, but we can try.
Yeah. Ryan Tannehill is a player I'm targeting all over the place. Matthew Stafford comes up very highly in a lot of the projections. So I think that we have a great opportunity to go quarterback here as well.
Yep, absolutely. And then if we want, we're looking later. Maybe we go with the Matt Ryan. We'll see what else is down there, if Russell Gage is available or anybody else. But we might be able to get a little decent stack there as well. At running back, I wouldn't mind trying to add a running back if there's anyone there. I think Ronald Jones as an RB3 is perfectly reasonable in a high-powered offense. Granted, you still – and there he goes.
Mm-hmm.
Look, only because he's actually good and efficient. It's just how much work is he going to cede to Leonard Fournette. Zack Moss is getting a lot of hype recently. He's going to be super touchdown dependent, not so much of a pass catching back. James Conner is one guy, Matt, that really intrigues me because I don't think they brought him into Arizona with no intention to use him. Now we do have DeAndre Hopkins, but we don't have Kyler Murray. I think he gets a lot of opportunities and the bulk of goal line opportunities over Chase Edmonds. But what do you see at running back that stands out of anything right now?
Maybe we're all, as an industry, discounting Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny, a little too much. I know in my initial rankings, with the biases of the Super Bowl and the playoff run fresh in my mind, I had Leonard Fournette ranked very highly, much higher than his current ADP. I think there's a possibility that Ronald Jones is just a better player, that Gio Bernard plays a lot more than we think. And then, of course, maybe we see Keyshawn Vaughn, their mid-round pick from a couple years ago, finally show up. But I think Leonard Fournette could be a starting running back on one of the best offenses in the league that's sitting around the 9-10 turn. We're talking about some pretty decent upside there, especially as a running back 3. I don't hate that. Again, I'm kind of leaning quarterback here because I believe we can find quarterbacks with.
Well, we'll have 2 picks in a row. So
yeah, I'm looking for opportunities to have weekly quarterback 3 or better upside. And I feel like we really lose out on that if we don't do it here, or we're really going to have something go right.
I agree. Tom Brady might be there. I probably just mushed us, but it's crazy too to see that Jalen Hurts is still on the board as well. Not that I want him on this team, but he was going like 6th, 7th, 8th at worst round in many of the drafts I did before. But things start to change really quickly once you get into mid-August.
Yeah, especially with those trade rumors. That doesn't sound like there's as much. I don't know if it's just smoke, but there were those rumors that Deshaun Watson might be heading to Philadelphia. If there's any team where it makes somewhat sense for Watson to go to, the Eagles do make sense. But there were some huge names in the industry hyping up Hurts early on in this offseason. It's dimmed down a little bit.
I'm a Tulsa Doug says Loughy likes Rojo the way Josh loved Ben Simmons. Yeah, I do like. I do think Ronald Jones is solid. I do, but excuse me.
Bless you.
No time to get to that mute button when I've got the draft screen up here. I think Ronald Jones is actually good and efficient, and if he were to get the work, would be pretty solid. But I don't discount what Matt's saying when you're talking about a guy in Ronald or in Leonard Fournette, because you're getting him considerably later than Ronald Jones, and that's significant to me.
And, some of these other running backs here talk about things needing to go right. Basically, the Bills have to do something entirely different at the goal line for Zack Moss's ADP to really show up, to be right.
We're going to get Tom Brady.
We're going to get him here, star him up, and we can just take our time on the next pick.
Yep.
The only other quarterback I'm considering at this point is Ryan Tannehill. They're very similar in weekly projections, but Brady, especially with Mike Evans, I'm all about that. Now, do we lean in on the Buccaneers, an offense that we project to be one of the best offenses in the league? Is Fournette still available? And just say this offense is going to outperform many others.
I mean, I'm willing to try it.
I think it's going to be a unique build. I don't think a lot of people are going to have the trio of Evans, Brady, and Fournette. And, do a little thought experiment. There are some weird lineups just like that take home first place in DFS lineups. And maybe week 16 and 17, they just outperform everyone.
What about, and we can go Fournette here, but what about Melvin Gordon in terms of the fact that everyone's high on Javonte Williams, yet it seems like Melvin Gordon right now is the clear back and clear number 1 back in Denver?
I think Melvin Gordon is going to start out as the running back 1 in Denver, but he needs to play tremendously well in order to keep Javonte Williams, a player who I know is PFF's number 1 graded running back coming out of the 2021 draft, a player that they traded up for in the 2nd round. I don't see how, with anything other than well above average play from Melvin Gordon, you don't see what you have in Javonte Williams. So it's basically we're asking for, do we want a couple of early weeks of running back 2 upside? Does our team really need that to go to first place in the puppy tournament? In my opinion, it just doesn't.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm pretty much in line with you on that. Now, let's take a look at what we have here. So we grabbed Tom Brady. I like that. We got him in a triple-digit round or triple-digit ADP or pick. Sorry, 108. That's cool. Totally fine. Montgomery, Gaskin, and Leonard Fournette. Not a bad running back core to have. I mean, look, I'm not stoked about Fournette being our 3, but once you see that we've got Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Kenny Golladay, and Will Fuller, and then Higbee at tight end, you feel a little bit better about those running backs. Yeah,
exactly. We really just need them to be our 5th or 6th best flex when we rank all of our flex players each week. And I think we have gotten that floor. I don't know if we have the same ceiling as other teams, but we also took a lot of wide receivers, which protects us from the injury fallout that inevitably happens every single year with the running back positions. Not to say our wide receivers couldn't get hurt as well. Will Fuller's been on an injury list or 2 himself over the years, but we can definitely say that we took a little bit of risk off of our team, and now we can take some bigger swings with the types of running backs and the running back prospects that we take later in the draft. Thrilled about that.
I think we can still create that ceiling. We've got plenty of ways to go here.
Absolutely. I noticed Tony Pollard starting to stick around.
Just start him already.
Yeah. As a fourth running back. Now, also in these drafts, I'm tending to I rarely draft 5 running backs in these drafts because basically we're counting on the best possible scenario for all these players. We're really thinking about first place, thinking about ceiling only in these massive tournaments. So we can start thinking about this being our final running back. Latavius, I'm not in as much as you are this year. I still have some huge question marks. There goes Pollard. About the quality of the New Orleans offense.
I do too, but at the same time, the team went 12-4 last year with a Drew Brees whose arm was basically dead. 4 games started from Taysom Hill, and Michael Thomas only playing 7 games and being hobbled for all of them. So how much worse can it get?
I think it gets worse when Taysom Hill doesn't throw for 200 yards a game and he's running at the goal line, and you're sitting here.
The starter?
I think it's a 50-50 chance. I think that people are overweighting the probability of Jameis Winston. I think all of what you have been saying about the upside of Latavius Murray holds true when you think about Jameis Winston being in the helm of that offense. That is
certainly a prerequisite. Like you can't. I would not want Latavius Murray if Taysom Hill is the starter. I believe that, and I know that it's been a mixed bag at camp and all of that, but I still think Jameis Winston ends up being the starter. But I can see why you have it at 50-50. I don't think that's crazy. But, yeah, look, I don't mind not going with him. I will say, though, if you're drafting Murray, you're getting – and in best ball it doesn't matter as much, but we do only have 3 running backs. You're getting 10 to 12 touches per game probably. Maybe we'll say 10 around 10 touches per game. And then a legitimate RB1 if Kamara were to go down. Are you saying that even if Kamara went down, you wouldn't see Murray as a potential RB1 candidate on a team that runs the ball at an insanely high clip?
If we're talking about RB1, meaning top 12, of course I can see a possibility where he could be a top 12 running back. But I think we saw a best case scenario for Latavius Murray last year when he got that full-fledged opportunity. I just see that as a more ceiling scenario that we saw. And so it's easier for us to envision it happening again. And it certainly could. I just think there are more question marks than we're necessarily accounting for. So I'd like to get him at a value.
Okay, well, we're 4 picks away. There's James Conner, Murray, Kenyon Drake, David Johnson, Jamal Williams, Nyheim Hines, and it's thinning out pretty quick.
Yeah, where are we looking at the other positions as well? We could theoretically finish the quarterback position if we go QB here.
Matt Ryan.
There's Matt Ryan sitting there.
I'm fine with that. And I also wouldn't even mind taking like Tevin Coleman in the 15th or 16th round.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman as in you want to take a backup for the Falcons, or you mean specifically the Jets, Tevin Coleman?
No. I'm saying if there aren't any good running backs here.
I see. I
don't know why we're convinced. Oh, I see. Well, he was in San Francisco after that, so I'd be crazy to still stay thinking of the Falcons. But what I'm saying, I don't think it's fair to assume that Michael Carter is like a 3-down back. There's no reason to believe that. And Tevin Coleman, I think, will be in a like full-out timeshare, maybe even get the bulk of the work early on. So I'm not enamored with him, but I think his ADP is way lower than it should be when you compare it to other guys that are in far less like favorable scenarios in terms of workload.
And we're also just discounting the Jets offense in general. I think there's the stink of Adam Gase that still lingers on this team. Meanwhile, Robert Saleh, if you've seen any of his press conferences, man, that dude sounds like a leader. I don't know how great his coaching is going to be right off the bat, but we're talking about Mike LaFleur coming in. That's Matt LaFleur's brother. These are offensive minds, or at least the LaFleur family. We usually praise the quality of this offense. So I'm fine taking Matt Ryan here. Tua is right there in the ranks, but I think we can star Matt Ryan and then look for the other positions for that second pick.
Yeah, I'd rather go Matt Ryan here as well. Let's see.
Emmanuel Sanders, he's interesting to me. I know people don't want to have these older wide receivers, but I don't mind Josh Allen's presumed number 2 wide receiver. I prefer him over an injured Rashad Bateman or Traquan Smith. David Johnson is actually a player that I'm warming up to. Just nobody else on that team other than him and Brandon Cooks could see a season where he just gets fed the ball on a team that doesn't get in the end zone, but he catches enough passes.
Philip Lindsay?
Phillip Lindsay does not catch passes enough or well enough for me to be super scared of David Johnson. They're probably equally in talent. I think that's probably it for the running back position because
I went Johnson. I don't think I don't think it's crazy. I mean, he's getting shit on left and right, and it's not to say that he's going to be good. This offense is not going to be good. We know that already. They have the lowest win total in the league. This team, there's a lot working against David Johnson, but 12th round for a guy that should be the number one running back on that team, I don't think it's the craziest idea to assume that enough pass catching work could result in a couple of big games throughout the season. And when you get to this part of the draft, you're hoping for a few big games, Matt.
That's right. And essentially, I've said this over and over again, but because of the tournament we are playing, we are just hoping for best case scenarios here. Look at the players going around him, James Conner, Devin Singletary. These are players where just for them, things have to go, they have to bounce the right way. For Arizona, they have to not use Chase Edmonds as you've projected them not to, but they also have to not use Kyler Murray and that passing attack that they love to use short area passes at the goal line. For Devin Singletary, reports out of camp that he's definitely second fiddle to Zack Moss, although you could see it rise because Moss has a minor injury right now at camp. But I still think Josh Allen is the best goal line back that the Bills have. So we're talking about players who definitely need things to go right. And if you look at expected fantasy points, obviously this was the Deshaun Watson Texans, but David Johnson was by far the highest expected points available on the board at that point.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm, by the way, I'm not saying Chase Edmonds doesn't get any of those carries, especially with Drake gone. I just don't think he's the guy, is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think you're going to see James Conner just spelling him on 2 drives per game and getting his 5 carries. Like, I actually think Conner's a lot more involved. And that's why I'm not as high on Chase Edmonds. But since I've been saying that for like a month now, Matt, all I see, and I'm not saying that I'm the reason this is happening, but all I'm seeing is Chase Edmonds' ADP plummet. So there's going to be a point where I'm perfectly happy taking Chase Edmonds. Nobody's undraftable. It's just if they come down far enough, like Saquon Barkley, he was still getting drafted 5th. I wanted nothing to do with that given the circumstances. Now I'm seeing Barkley go in the 2nd round. I will happily take Barkley in the 2nd round all day long. It's just a matter of where you're getting value on some of these guys, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I just want to add that I think there's a possibility that James Conner is just, he doesn't have the same burst and he's just might be dust at this point. He's had several knee injuries. I hope I'm wrong here because I really like his story, really like the player. Certainly if you had him on your 2018 or 2019 fantasy teams where he took over for Le'Veon Bell, that was a fun ride. But is it possible that Eno Benjamin is just as good as James Conner right now? I think the answer is probably not yes, but not 100%.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna say you're wrong because we don't know. I mean, think about it. Drake was never meant to be a starter and took over, had those huge games. And Chase Edmonds coming into a scenario like this, could he be the guy? Sure. Could Eno Benjamin be the backup? Yes. But I also don't want to discount the fact that James Conner was running behind arguably the worst offensive line in the league last year. And I know he dealt with some injuries, Matt, but that offensive line was so bad that it forced Ben Roethlisberger to pass 50-plus times.
Yes, that's true.
So, yes. And Conner was still good on goal line opportunities. Like, he was still converting them at a pretty high clip. So, I don't know. We'll see. But again, it's such a muddied – this has been kind of my opinion on it the whole time. My thought process is I don't know what's going to happen in Arizona, so why am I drafting Edmonds in the 6th round when I can take Conner in the 11th? Like, that was kind of what it came down to for me. It was more so just give me 5 rounds later on a guy who maybe he is dust, but if he is, I don't get hurt nearly as bad as I do drafting Edmonds as a starter.
I agree there. But I think in this case, I think we might be done picking running backs. So let's check out the other positions that are available here. We have 2 quarterbacks as well. I'm fine taking 3 because a week without a quarterback, even just quarterback 18 or 15 or better, is so detrimental for these best ball tournaments where you need to get 2nd place in order to advance. So I'm looking at quarterback, wide receiver, maybe tight end here because I think if you're okay with it, we could do a build with 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 2 tight ends, and the rest wide receivers.
Okay. So I don't generally draft when I have some quarterbacks I like, I don't usually go 3, but I'm okay with it. It's not something I'm opposed to either. And Tua, if Tua's still there, that means we have Tua Will Fuller, which isn't the craziest idea.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm taking Tua here. I think that you could take the upside of Tua, one of the best college players we have ever seen, still just 2 years removed from a devastating hip injury. It doesn't surprise me that he's looking way better at camp. He's a quarterback 1 in my projections, so I think I would take them there. And now, hey, Jonnu Smith could easily be, with this Hunter Henry injury, I think he could be a highly underrated player. You're looking at a much different tier of receiver overall here. Trying to look at some of the other players that might be there.
Unless you want to go full out Tampa stack with Gronk.
Hey, I don't hate that. I would do Gronk. I have them rated right next to each other. One of the two.
Let's do Gronk here. I think it could actually work because Gronk. I don't know if I said that. I don't know if I was on the show with you where I was like, hey, guess where Gronk was ranked at his position over the final. I think it was like 12 weeks of the season. Maybe it wasn't you, Matt, but whoever it was shocked.
No, it was us. We were shocked right? To find out.
Go ahead.
Yeah, tight end 4. Steal your thunder a little bit, but
yeah, tight end 4 since I think weeks 5 through 17 of last year, and that's not even to consider the fact that Antonio Brown played the last 8 games of the season. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's upside on this team now because there's still I'm still willing to take considerably more risk. We could talk wide receivers now, but Gronk with Brady, with Evans and Fournette. All you know is that if they score a lot of points every week, it doesn't need to be all of those guys doing the job, right? Like, I think that's a misconception that you're just assuming that Tom Brady needs to hit Evans and Gronk and Fournette has to catch 8 passes every week for this to work. It could be any combination of those guys as long as Tom Brady's putting up numbers.
Exactly. We had multiple tournament winners in DFS last year where people had stacked Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, because the Titans had overperformed their expectations and their projections so well that they were correlated with each other that day. Just, we're kind of locked into this idea that the quarterback and a running back, or if you have too many of one stack, not everyone can do well. But we're wanting them to do well over the course of several weeks here. So we're basically just throwing in, the Buccaneers randomizer. I'm happy to have all those players on that same team.
Yeah. Buccaneers randomizer. I like that. Wide receiver, Sammy Watkins is still sitting there. I guess the Rashad Bateman injury, for those of you wondering, week to week now, it's not. They're not saying it's. They're saying it's not going to be months. So take that for what it's worth. For me, it's like I just hate this. I hate this passing game. Even if Roman says they're going to go more passing this or more pass heavy this year, I'll believe it when I see it. It's so hard for me to buy into that. I don't think Perriman's the craziest answer on a team where they don't have a defined wide receiver 1 role. It's got to be somebody. But as a burner and someone that operates a lot downfield, is Goff going to be able to get him the football? That's tough.
Yeah, I think that I've soured on Perriman specifically. He's hurt once again in camp. Goff cannot hit people deep. He's a deep receiver. I'm taking a chance on Tyrell Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown. If I'm going to take a chance on any Lions not named Hawkinson. Fair
enough. I really was hoping that Bryan Edwards would keep falling. But, the problem is that people get hyped up when you have your coaches comparing him to T.O. and other people comparing him to Randy Moss. And then Derek Carr saying he reminds me of Devontae Adams when we played together at Fresno State. There's just if you're drafting Bryan Edwards, you're not getting him. You're not getting him at a value. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that's for sure. The hype is back once again, and it feels like last August when the hype was out of control for him as well. De'Ami Brown is an interesting option here. We have a really solid core of wide receivers. I think De'Ami Brown is personally a lock to run with the ones for Washington, a team that should have an improved offense, or at least a more variable offense with higher upside with Ryan Fitzpatrick. We might have some down weeks as well. But Curtis Samuel has missed time in camp, and that has opened the door for De'Ami Brown, to the 3rd round pick for Washington, to get major playing time with the starters. I think I was really high on him in the dynasty sphere. This is the type of build and the type of tournament I like to take chances on players like this. I picked him over Kadarius Toney in an Awesemo Dynasty draft earlier this year. Just letting you know how high I am on De'Ami Brown.
Yeah, that's very
Long-term.
high on him. I think the upside is there. I have no issues with that whatsoever. Outside of Terry McLaurin, who is really the guy as the number 2 there?
Yeah, I mean, you got to respect what Curtis Samuel was able to put together in terms of a 1,000-yard season. But
there's no doubt about that. But I guess at the same time, Curtis Samuel, he did have a 1,000-yard season in terms of yards from scrimmage, not receiving. But
and if you talk about physicality, De'Ami Brown and Curtis Samuel could not. They play the same position, but they could not be physically more different. De'Ami Brown is a huge target, is targeted downfield consistently, and it looks like we got sniped. Oh, is that fun? I'm only looking at the wide receiver position here, really for the rest of the draft.
We're on the clock. So only wide receiver.
I'm fine with Djax. I think Matthew Stafford could hit him, so it's about, can he stay healthy? Well, we're worried about that for every 12th round pick. Darius Slayton and Tyrell Williams, they're lower in my projections. Van Jefferson, absolutely not. Nico Collins, I'm all out on. So I'm a Deshaun Jackson, is my first pick here.
Do you want to go wide receiver again?
I do. In fact, I would take in the puppy tournament. I would take wide receivers for the rest of the draft.
Okay.
I would.
Okay. What do you want to do here? Pick one.
Okay. Tyrell Williams would be the option here for me real fast.
I don't have an issue with that. Again, there has to be a top target of Jared Goff's. Even if we don't like Goff or this offense, how many times are they going to be placed in a scenario where they are forced to throw the football? And if Perriman, like you said, is injured again, which has been really the story of his career, he's had some big weeks, like at the end of the season in Tampa Bay in 2019, huge end of the year. But all in all, Amon-Ra St. Brown, he is a rookie. They don't really have anybody that stands out as the clear, defined, bona fide number 1. So why not take a shot as late in the draft as we are, Matt, on one of these guys and hope, hey, maybe that's the guy, because they still have to throw. It's not going to be Jets offense for circa 2020 bad. It just can't be, I don't think.
I don't think so either. I mean, obviously, the non-Sean McVay years for Jared Goff were not pretty. So there's that concern that he just reverts to just a very subpar quarterback. However, I think what they're putting together on the offensive side of the ball in Detroit, it may not coalesce this year, but they actually are building something. That line is going to be sturdy as hell. It's going to be above average line for sure. And I don't absolutely hate what they did signing the speedster and Tyrell Williams and Brashad Perriman. If you think you're still a year away, like I think this is a team that is definitely going to be looking at a high round receiver, but there's a lot of buzz about Amon-Ra St. Brown playing ahead of his draft stock early on this season. I would not hate that. Let's just check our construction here. We have 3 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, and 2 tight ends. Is that correct?
Yeah, Brady, Matt Ryan, and Tua. Those are our 3 quarterbacks, and I'm perfectly happy with all of them. Then we've got Montgomery, Gaskin, Fournette, David Johnson, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Kenny Galladay, Will Fuller, Deshaun Jackson, Tyrell Williams. So lots of wide receivers, and then 2 tight ends. I don't hate looking at tight end and seeing if something pops up.
I'm not opposed to it. The historical weekly numbers say that at this level of tight end, you're not getting anything really different than, say, 5 to 8 tight ends ago in terms of ADP, but you are getting significantly less average weekly points than the wide receivers or the running backs here. I'm really just thinking totally about ceiling here. If we are looking at a tight end here, I'd rather go later. Last week, we talked about Eric Ebron and Zach Ertz as safer options. We could take a last round flyer on OJ Howard and lean into the Buccaneers stack again.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say if there's one guy at tight end for me that I think still offers some value, it would be Zach Ertz, just because the original interpretation of his situation right now or before was Zach Ertz is not going to play. He's going to get traded. And I know he's not happy there, but training camp suggests, and it's still only training camp, but he's on the field and Jalen Hurts has been peppering him and Dallas Goedert. They like running those 2 tight end sets, even though neither of them can block. Like maybe Zach Ertz does just have a bigger role than we think he's going to have this year.
Yeah, I've loved him as a last round pick. And
yeah, you brought him up on our strategy show last week. That's right.
I'm not opposed to it. If you're talking about my typical roster construction for the puppy tournament with hundreds of thousands of competitors, I am going wide receiver very, very heavy here. Obviously, with a last round pick, the player just needs to be an outlier in terms of how much they outperform their projection, and that can happen at any position. All the high upside quarterbacks, I think, are probably gone at this point. So, yeah, even Cam Newton is off the board at this point. So I think, yeah, players like Hunter Renfrow and Keelan Cole, they really don't make a lot of sense for this roster. I think Albert Wilson, who apparently has been the best wide receiver at camp, makes sense here with Tua on our roster as well. Donovan Peoples-Jones was another one that I really like looking at in the late rounds. Some of these big players.
What about later in the draft, like last pick if he's there, Olamide Zaccheaus, given that we've got Matt Ryan on this roster and Calvin Ridley already?
We could do that. I really think they're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets, and they're going to have Gage, they're going to have Ridley, they're going to have Pitts, and they're going to Hurst as well.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be there anyway, because I wouldn't want to do it. Well, actually, these are our last 2 picks coming up, huh?
Yeah, they are. We could also do Kadarius Toney. I think he's going to have a really limited role. He's competing with a lot of different players. He's not my favorite at all, as I just mentioned, especially in this rookie class.
What about Amari? Did you mention Amari Rogers? Because he's at least one guy where he's on a team. The other guys are Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling behind Devontae Adams.
I see him as a straight handcuff at wide receiver, which I rarely ever take. I think he is waiting for a Randall Cobb injury. I think Aaron Rodgers took a look at Amari Rogers and said, he's not ready. Get Randall back. Yeah. We're putting him there. We'll put Amari in later. Or do better. Pick up earlier round wide receiver.
So there's just not a lot here at wide receiver. I'm just perusing here at running back. Not much here either. Yeah, like you're talking handcuffs. Samaje Perine behind Mitchell.
All right, here we are. I'm looking wide receiver at this point here.
That's fine. I mean, there's just not much anywhere. So tell me who you like at wide receiver. Because
I would star Hamler, the second round pick, even though obviously a lot of mouths to feed.
Mouths to feed there. Bro.
I know. We need something to go right for all of these 17th, 18th round players.
That's
so fair. I'd like a speedster. Again, we're picking players who have theoretical ceilings here. KJ Hamler, I certainly don't hate the pick as a last rounder. I think Zach Ertz probably would be my pick here as a third tight end. Again, a player who's sitting here in the last round, expected. Oh, he's gone.
He's gone.
Okay. I think we could buy the dip on Hunter Henry. We could take OJ Howard, and I take Henry.
Let's go Henry. They just have there are no weapons on that team. That's kind of the thing, right? Like who are the weapons? Jonnu Smith, I get it, scored 8 touchdowns last year with Matthew Tannehill at the helm, but and Jacoby Myers and stuff. But who else do they have on this team in the passing game?
Let's talk about a player who was, a mid-round pick, a single-digit round pick every single year in Los Angeles. And I'm not saying we shouldn't discount him because of the fact that he's currently injured and he's on this new offense. We have no idea what it's going to look like. But my goodness, we're talking about an incredibly talented player who signed for a ton of money in the offseason, and we've basically written him off into the last rounds of fantasy drafts. Okay, he's priced at his floor. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, look, is our 18th pick. I don't hate it at all, Matt. So let's go over this. Now, we were trying to do something a little bit different today, so we'll do that in all of these drafts, right? And that's essentially what I'm trying to do is in all of these drafts, do something a little bit different. And I think you would agree, right? Not in all of them, but I'm saying with these mock drafts we're doing, see what we can come up with that's different than, of course, doing every draft the exact same way.
Sure, we could obviously just pull up the Awesemo projections and just draft straight off the projections, and we're going to have a team that seems pretty optimized in terms of median outcomes. Guess what we don't need in a giant tournament of 100,000 people? Median outcomes.
Yeah, exactly.
We need ceiling outcomes. And so we don't want to draft poorly. We don't want to draft suboptimally, but we do want to draft uniquely. And I think we've accomplished that here. And, it doesn't feel that bad when December, January rolls around and hopefully this team is competing for lots of money. And we're going, wow, we really need a good day from Tom Brady and the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Or hopefully Matt Ryan targets Calvin Ridley 12 times like he's going to do every single week anyway. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I think it's pretty solid. Let's go over it one more time. We've got Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Tua Tagovailoa, And mind you, we went wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. But you still got Montgomery. We got Gaskin, who's still a 3-down back. Leonard Fournette, David Johnson. Sketchy guys, but you know what? Rounding it out, fine. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre. I could probably read them off the top of my head. But let's go to completed. Let's go back to this, Matt, see if there's anything. So where's the last one I did? Oh, no, that's wrong. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah,
Ridley, this is where it gets sexy. Ridley, Hopkins, Mike Evans, Galladay, Fuller, Jackson, Tyrell Williams, KJ Hamler. And then we still got Higbee, Gronk, and Hunter Henry. I like it. What do you like best about this team? What would you do differently if we had to run it back?
Not a lot, actually. I love to see an over 3,100 median projection. That means we drafted similar to what projection. I mean, obviously, these are underdogs projections and not our Awesemo projections, which I would rank a little bit higher. I would have liked to get a little bit more safety at the running back if that was at all possible. But I'm thrilled with the amount of ceiling we have in the late round wide receivers. I think I would have liked to add a little bit of wide receiver youth at the end other than KJ Hamler. That's really late. But I think we did a pretty solid job here.
Me too, man. And I'm okay with it. We're going to do this. We'll run this back again next week. And we're going to be doing drafts with you guys. If you want to join us, we'll be doing a lot of these drafts through Underdog. Listen, before you sign up, though, use the promo code Awesemo if you didn't sign up yet. AWESEMO. Get $25 when you sign up and deposit. Just seriously, I mean, make it happen, okay? And then we could do all of this together, get in some drafts. I don't know if we'll live stream them because it's just going to be us talking about our picks and then people knowing what's going on. But we're going to do a lot of them. I'll tweet them out. We'll put them in here. We'll let you guys know. We'll have them in chat, all of that great stuff. So hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel before you go. Follow Matt at Draftaholic on Twitter, myself at Loughy_D, and we will catch you back here for the next one. Peace.